To you live from a garage in Gainesville, Florida, like two muertos de hambres. It's El Cuban Dudes Show with Andy and Abel. From the 305 to the 352, from Miami to Gainesville to Orlando to Tallahassee to Jacksonville and beyond. It's time for El Cuban Dudes Show of Florida. Dale. Good Thursday evening, everyone. It's March 21st, 2024, and welcome to El Cuban Dudes Show. I'm here joined with my co-host, Abel Cepeda. Abel, say hello to everyone like the usuals.
What's going on, everybody?
What is going on, everybody, indeed? Today is going to be a fun show, though we're going to be talking about a sad topic, but we're going to be talking about Cuba, our home country, and talking about the latest of what's been going on with Cuba. And just the people marching in the streets, the people complaining about the food and the electricity and the things and the stuff. And we're going to be talking about just the culture, the background, growing up in Miami, being Cuban, just talking about a lot of different things that just involve what is the Cuban community of this country and of the country and everything that's going on. So we're going to jump right into it here. And I'm going to let me bring up, oops, sorry, Abel. Hey, okay. There's always that one thing that is like, oh, yep, that's right. We're live. Sorry.
Yep.
We're going to jump right into it. I'm going to load a video here for you guys to let you guys give a little bit of a synopsis as to what's going on in Cuba and why there is the things that are going on. And let me go ahead and load our episode video here. And let's see. Ay, Dios, Abel. Me estoy ahogando. Where the hell did I put that video?
Oh, don't worry about it, dude. So listen, guys. So I'm having a delicious soft drink. It is called Iron Beer.
Iron Beer.
It makes me very, very strong.
Abel hasn't had that in a while.
Dude, it was fantastic. I really thank you very much.
Okay, I found it.
You
Enough bullshitting. I found
right.
it.
And that was brought to you by Idon Bear.
You don't bet. Here's the reason why things have been going down in Cuba.
What's going on?
Yo quito los equipos cuando se va la luz, yo quito los equipos, pero el problema es que se va la luz de ram pam pam, no avisan y la vuelven a poner y la quitan otra vez y la ponen y la quitan y la ponen y la quitan. Parece que hay alguien comiendo mierda ahí.
Ese tipo estaba. Wow. So
Bro.
that's the culprit, dude.
That's the culprit.
Busted.
There's this dude.
He got busted, bro.
Yeah, so we want to make fun of it and make light of it all we want. I mean, definitely, it's the only thing we do. I think Cubans have learned to make light of the situation in our own country, I guess. But yeah, man, I was telling Abel, before this episode, I said, Abel, it would be a disservice if we didn't have an episode where we at least spoke about Cuba, spoke about just what's going on with the country. People protesting in the streets and just kind of having the conversation about everything that is Cuba within, of course, the Cuban Dudes Show, right?
Right.
I want to highlight this to start just what's going on, right? What is it that's happening, right?
Right.
So a few days ago, I think this started. Did it start Sunday or Monday?
I think we're probably in like day 2. Actually, like 3 or 4.
Yeah, I think they started like Sunday evening,
Yeah.
probably Monday morning. People in Bayamón, the east part of the country, all the way, and I think this reached all the way into Santiago de Cuba, which is slightly more central, but still eastern. Second largest city in the country.
Correct.
Went out on essentially it's not riots per se, but they were protesting.
Right.
And at first it was like, well, what the hell's going on?
Which is really unheard of.
Yeah, of course.
That's why it's such a big thing.
Yeah. And it's like, well, what the hell's going on? You know what I mean? Like, everybody knows that shit is bad in Cuba and nobody's sitting around not having a miserable time. So when people hit the streets, you're like, oh, wait a minute, something happened,
Right.
And when you come to find out, it's, folks out in the eastern part of the country are complaining about the lack of electricity, the lack of food, which is just a thing in Cuba, right? But I think that the bigger problem is that summer is coming up.
Okay.
Spring in Cuba technically is already like, summer 1.0.
Right.
Summer 2.0, the real summer is coming down the road.
Real summer's upon.
And people are pissed. Like they're already foreseeing all of the blackouts, the lack of power, the lack of any kind of air conditioning, if there even is any.
Yeah, they just can't sleep at night.
They
That's the
can't
pro-
sleep. They can't do anything. They're starving. They're pissed off.
They're pissed off.
So they're going out into the streets and they're just, they're complaining. And what you can't really blame the people.
No, you really can't. I mean, it's. I think they should have been protesting a long time ago. Really.
Yeah, we get images like these from people out in Bayamo. Check this out.
Let's check it out.
People just out in the streets, just literally just chanting liberty, liberty, liberty. And you see those kind of things living in this country, and you take for granted just how dangerous and scary it is to even be in these countries saying that out loud.
Yep.
I mean, you have a police officer just around the corner that if they spot you even partaking in this.
Yeah. So basically, what's happening here is that yes, there are those police that kind of take care of the neighborhood and all that, but there's a system in place where they have like what they call the leader of a comité, which is another group of snitches.
Right.
The government.
Master snitch.
A master snitch with like 12 other snitches from the neighborhood. Is almost like a super what is it, a homeowners association. That
Oh God,
that's one of those.
Yeah.
So the system teaches them to be ratty against each other. So if the government that month tells you, there is no pork or there is no chicken, and your neighbor happens to smell you cooking pork or chicken, you're gonna get a car at your house knocking your door and arresting you. They're arresting kids that everybody in those in what we're gonna see today, what we just saw, they have the potential of being arrested with no cause, and there's people that are still missing since last year or the couple of years ago that they haven't seen them.
Yeah, beat the hell up.
They beat women, children. They don't care. The little kids. As a matter of fact, I saw yesterday. Was it yesterday? A 12-year-old boy got ratted out by her neighbor saying that he was in the protest. Now they're picking him up and they're taking them to like a type of concentration camp, which is it's like a private thing where they cut caña and they cut just agricultural stuff. It's crazy, dude.
Yeah, they beat you into a pulp in such a way where you get so mentally scarred that you dare never say a word again about anything. There's very select few people that still have the cojones to come out
Exactly.
and still talk about the regime and come out and still. I mean, those people, man, they're brave, man. They're brave.
They are.
And con la edad and just like having my own kids and my own family and stuff. And a lot of these people have kids. They have families. They have people that they need to care for.
Right.
Sickly people that depend on them to provide something for their family.
Right.
You know what I mean? And of course, I mean, we do know that Cuba's a communist system. Everybody lives off of the handout.
Right.
But still, the handouts are not enough, right?
No.
So you get people that you depend on to get something, to provide.
Mhm.
And this person is going out and risking their lives, their livelihood. You know what I mean? Like just going out and protesting.
Yeah, that's a big one. It's a big one. And what happens is also, even for those that get to escape the island, that you will see that you've seen the rafters and all of that. When they get here, they also have to be very, very careful with what they say, because you still have family in the island, and then they start telling you, hey, if your cousin that's over there in La Yuma in the United States keeps on with what he's doing, we're gonna cut more of your food, we're gonna have you arrested, and then they control the rest of the Cubans that are here because you have family over there.
And
Crazy.
what's really behind this is just a poor mismanagement of food, mismanagement of electricity. I mean, as per the Wall Street Journal, there's an article that was written recently that really talks about what's behind this whole thing.
Oh, let's hear it. I think
and yeah, they're I mean, I'm gonna quote it at a high level, but they essentially say that the outdated electrical grids and plants that rival that of the 1950s vehicles that drive down the streets in Cuba, and the shortage of fuel from Venezuela, in reality, are primarily to blame And when we use the word blame related to Cuba, it's always a loose thing, right? Because we always say, well, what's to blame? What is the problem? And we always know the problem is no le sale del what to just help out and actually be an actual country that gives a damn about its people.
Right.
So when you say something like, well, Venezuela and the lack of fuel is to blame, well, man, if you actually rationed it out and if you actually, cared about the people, maybe this would never even be a problem to blame, if you understand what I mean.
Right.
Pero yeah, in reality, in a nutshell, that's behind everything that's going on at this moment.
No, and they have a thing where they love to point the fingers at people. It's never them.
Yeah.
It's always they always blame the embargo, the so-called embargo. And you will see. Hopefully, we can find the video. If not, I'll let you guys know that I think it was yesterday, the day before yesterday. They've been telling people they don't have food, they don't have milk, they don't have anything, and suddenly they found warehouses full of grain and rice and everything that belongs to the higher ups. So they're like, okay, so this embargo is only for the people of the island and not for the bigwigs. It's I think it's just a bunch of bullshit, bro.
David says the main reason for the protests is que los apagones are too long and too often, and the little resources of food they have go to shit.
Yeah, it was that dude, that guy that you busted. That's him, turning on and off the lights. That's the guy.
Bing, 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 bing. Yeah.
No, and then the problem there is that so if you make an effort and you go buy them you go there and you buy your aunt a TV so everybody go watch this, or you buy them a radio, you're burning their phones, you're burning everything because those things going in and out, te quema el sistema. Y se joden también.
Here's another video of people protesting in the
Let's
streets.
see this.
Do you imagine living in a world where everybody's out in the streets going, "We want food.
That's I don't want.
We want food."
Yeah, I don't.
I mean, being an American living in this country, just imagine people out in the streets yelling,
Well,
"We want food."
No, dude. Everybody will be raiding Publix and Aldi's and
Yeah.
I just don't see it. I mean, it could happen. I'm not saying it could look.
No. I'm not.
Cuba said that it wouldn't happen to Cuba, and Venezuela said it wouldn't happen to them, and it creeped up on them.
Yeah, that's one of those things. This country is definitely heading in some not to change the narrative too much, but it is heading in a direction where, in some ways, it almost feels very kind of Orson Welles.
Right. So I have friends of mine that are telling me, Abel, older guys, they're telling me like, hey, the government wants to control TikTok. They're starting to control, communications. If they want to control that, and they want to control. In a periodo especial, which was in the 90s, the government, was having problems with the agriculture. So they were forcing Cubans to grow things in your backyard, kind of like what certain cities are doing here. But that was taken, straight from Fidel Castro's handbook. Because what happened was that there wasn't enough. Either the dirt had been already used so much for so many years and not replenished with the minerals that it needs to grow. So it wasn't the farming wasn't as good as it should be. So people started growing stuff in their backyards, but the government would come in and say, all right, so for example, you grew 20 potatoes, you keep 4 and we take the rest. So my friends are like, listen, when you start seeing also military acting like police officers, like what's going on in New York, people controlling the TVs and the radios and the internet, and they start controlling if they want to take away your guns, and that's all part of the communist system, dude, to control the masses. And that's kind of scary for those that have lived that, right? And those of us that come from families that have lived that. For the rest of the world and the rest of the USA, that they only read it in books, it's when you read it in theory, it's utopia. Everybody gets to share. We all share, and
right.
But look at that; it's not the same.
It's a dangerous thing. I think it's a very fickle kind of system because, having studied in college just what happened in Russia, during what became communist Russia, right?
Hmm.
One learns that yes, Russia before was an aristocracy. They had a king and a queen and this and that and the other. But when the system in Russia became that the top 1% became too much of a 1%, if you get what I mean,
Right.
and the poor became too large and the segment in the middle became too small,
Right.
you then get that system in place where people come in and they start to go, hey, do you want to be all equals? And they're primarily talking to the poor.
Correct.
You want to be all equals. You want to have the same thing that this guy
Right.
has and that guy has. And you have so many poor people in this broken system that, and once again, you're losing the middle class daily to the poor.
Kind of like what's happening here.
Right. So what ends up happening is you lend the ear of these folks. And of course, they're so beaten up and so broken down that they turn around and say, yeah, I want to be like everyone else.
Right, because they think, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, and it almost seems like they're trying to, they think or they sell them that no, we're gonna bring you up,
Right.
and it's not that they're bringing everybody else down to that level,
Right.
which is what I'm understanding.
No, it is. It is indeed correct. That is indeed what happens.
Okay.
But what my greater, I think, conclusion is in this point is I believe that, in having studied this once again when I was in college, one of my big epiphanies was that a democratic system tends to have the ability to steamroll eventually into a communist system if you just kind of let it be. If you don't interject and kind of once in a while pump in some kind of balance, you help out the economy a little bit.
Right.
You help out the middle class in particular, the middle class being dire.
Right.
To kind of sustain itself. These are the people that are creating new business. They're bringing in new jobs. They're kind of balancing out the system, right?
Right.
The top are always going to be the top.
Right.
The poor don't always have to be the poor, but but they could work out of it.
Right, and that's the beauty of this country, that you don't have to be rich, but if you have a decent enough job, even if it's laying bricks, you can go sit with a rich person in any restaurant and have the same dinner and not notice the difference.
Right.
But when you go to these other countries, dude, you can't go into those restaurants
Yeah.
because they don't allow you to go into those restaurants.
Yeah. No, forget
And
about
then
it.
that's where you see the gap more in like Cuba, Colombia.
So what ends up happening is, once again, is the system could derail itself into that, and that's why I'm saying it's a very fickle kind of thing. It's dangerous. And once again, when I was in my college days, I remember thinking about that and being like, wow, like that just kind of makes common sense to me, because the way the world was going, even in the early 2000s, even then, you kind of felt like you saw that kind of stuff happening, like it was sort of coming.
Right.
And I remember even talking to people at the time, older folks, my parents, my wife's parents, the old guard, as they call them, from Cuba, and saying, you guys got to be careful. Because if we keep messing around with this country, this could end up looking like something like a communist. Because, and I explained the whole trajectory of what, stupid, young, still wet behind the ears college student was talking about.
Right.
But it just made logical sense to me. And as time has gone on here, and with the current administration that we have, just the rhetorics that we see online, the outside interjection, because Cuba's a country, we all know this. Cuba's like a puppet country. There's a lot of other countries outside of it kind of always using it for its own gain, for its own interest. And the United States has become a country little by little where outside countries are also using it for their own gain, for their own interest. We've heard the stories of China.
Yeah, the same players.
Yeah, the same players always.
The same players.
The stories of Russia, even just other outside countries sticking their hands in things within the United States to slowly unwind it, right? To get the people to turn against each other, which is what happened in Cuba, right? In Cuba, at the end of the day, during the Batista, administration and stuff, everybody just kind of was fed up with everything that was going on. Everybody was just looking around saying, damn, there has to be a better system than this.
Right.
You know what I mean? And then here comes this asswipe with all these claims of making everybody equal.
Correct. And that's what I was going to ask you also, or maybe you can help me out. We need the right balance, because if we go too left, we got a situation. And if we go too right, we have another similar situation.
We have fascism.
Right. So there has to be a balance, dude.
The balance is what I think this country was for the most part, between maybe during the start and the first few 10 to 20 years after the Industrial Revolution, maybe somewhere there.
Right.
That was kind of the balance. World War II threw that off a little bit. You know what I mean? Then came Vietnam. That kind of threw it off as well.
Right.
But the country was finding that balance. It was somewhere in the middle. People were proud to be Americans. People were proud to be a part of this country. And so, but most recent, and which brings me into my next thing that I was going to talk about Cuba, which is the internet.
Okay.
Most recent, the internet definitely is that extra wild card that other generations before didn't have to deal with.
Yeah, they didn't have that. Yeah.
Even in parenting, you sometimes get people going, "Oh, every kid goes through that." I'm like, "Yeah, how old are you?" "Oh, I'm in my, 50s, 60s, whatever." I'm like, "Yeah, your kids and your kids' kids and this and that, like they, excuse me, your parents and your parents' parents, and
Right.
like they didn't have to go through what we're going through." "Oh, what do you mean?" "We have the internet."
Right.
Like you don't relate. You don't relate. This constant information at your fingertips constantly changes the dynamic. There's a line drawn in the sand, the dynamic of what we deal with versus what other generations dealt with.
Right.
And I think that trickles over into the country, into the economy, into other things, right? Not just something like parenting in this example, right? It leaks into other things.
Well, I'll be honest. If it wasn't for the internet and all the phones that they have in Cuba, we would not know what the hell is going on there, because these things
that's the other side of the coin.
Fine, my brother. Now, everything that we're watching, that we're seeing, and that why we are all aware of what's going on is because of the internet and because of those phones and because they're recording everything. Which is why I also think maybe that's why they want to control TikTok. That's maybe TikTok. I know it's a lot of gaslighting in there. It's just not fucking news. But every once in a while, if you go and somebody's saying shit and you go back and you fact check, and you're like, you know what, this guy's probably he's onto something here.
At the end of the day, though, you and I both know that this is the United States' fault.
Well, yes.
Montaron toda una dinámica mediática y de inmediato apareció una articulación muy grande de incitadores. La embajada de Estados Unidos con un mensaje injerencista, hipócrita, prepotente. Los odiadores, connotados terroristas que enseguida empezaron a dar fórmulas de cómo había que actuar de manera agresiva en Cuba. La fake news, mentiras, videos falsos, construcciones. Y una vez más se muestran los propósitos, la perversidad, el desprecio del gobierno de los Estados Unidos por el pueblo de Cuba.
Yeah, what he's basically saying there is that the United States government, the United States in general, is to blame for what's going on in Cuba right now, because we have essentially fanned the flame of these terrorists, quote unquote, terrorists.
Oh, wow.
People that are going out into the streets saying, "Please, we want food."
Yeah, they look like terrorists.
"Please, we want power."
Right.
These terrorists, okay? The United States has fanned the flame, and we are to blame for what's going on in the country.
Sweet God Almighty.
Yeah. Which, the president of Cuba, his name, by the way, is Miguel Diaz.
Maricón.
Miguel Diaz Canel, but in Holguín, where originally he was secretary of the country, he was known as Miguel Diaz Condón.
Oh.
And that was because he actually did not allow, he implemented a dry law in that part of the country where he did not allow farmers to sell their own milk. You're a farmer, in this country, of course, we all know that there's rules and regulations, selling milk, this and the other. We get that.
Right.
But at the end of the day, you ultimately check off all the boxes, you fill up all the paperwork, and you ultimately get to a point where you can sell your own stuff out of your own land, this and that, and the other, blah, blah.
Right.
Well, in that country, you're not allowed. And he implemented a dry law where you weren't allowed. And in reality, we always use air quotes because it's always bullshit.
Right.
The reasoning behind all of this was, to ration the milk and the food and this and that and the other, and it didn't help anything. Right. So the people in Holguín, being pissed, especially the farmers, just to refer to him as Miguel Diaz Condón, because that's the only word I guess they could find close enough to rhyme his last name. Which we always said, we were like, not always, excuse me, we were talking about earlier. We said that maybe Condón
y maricón,
y apagón, y singón, it rhymes with it. So that's huevón. That's a perfect thing. But definitely, yeah, man, it's Cuba is a country right now that I think is like we just mentioned, because of the internet, is becoming more kind of like aware of things. And I think things like, we had Jay Global on a few episodes ago where he spoke about, El Reparto movement and the young cats with the music and this and that and the other, blah, blah. And you and I, we either could take some from that, take not. There's some, actually, I've been listening to more lately. There's actually some good stuff in there. There's a lot of stuff that I'm like, meh, but there's a lot of stuff that actually got me, damn, this is pretty hot.
Cool.
But my greater point is, the music scene, more artists that come out of Cuba, more popular. You have what's the name of this actress that's sorry, baby, if you're watching. Ana de Armas,
of course, La Cubanita. She's from Havana.
You know what I mean? Like all these people, are just more in the public eye in Cuba. And Cubans, I think, are just more aware. Like the little bit of internet that they get over there, you're laughing. The little bit of internet that they get over there at public locations, whatever the case is, it's just people are more in tap. People are more in tune with what's going on in the world.
And as it should be, dude. You need to be informed of what's going on, in your neighbor's house. Not to be un chismoso, pero coño, you need to know what's going around the block, what's happening in the world.
And I think that definitely is, like I said, the other side of the coin of the internet and all the stuff, all the negative stuff that it brings. The positive spin of what it brings is kind of like, I think what happened.
It should be a tool, bro.
What happened in the early, I think it was like 2010, 2011 in Egypt when there was riots in Egypt. It was because of Twitter. People were tweeting stuff about Egypt, and I think the government. And
I don't remember.
Dude, fucking almost like Twitter brought down all of the entire Egyptian government. You know what I mean? Just Twitter alone. So you have the internet just being this tool, and I think that in itself is kind of sort of. I'm not saying that's the reason, because people are complaining for a legitimate reason,
right?
But I just think that lends itself to the pulse of the people a little bit more.
It does.
Y oye, cuidado, because now the summer is coming, and the fucking hottest shit temperatures in Cuba are coming through the roof. And if people are already pissed now about the lack of energy and the lack of anything and the lack of and just in general, I mean, how are people in Miami?
People in Miami have AC in every corner, and they're still pissed off.
They're still pissed off.
That sweat stuff. You take a shower, and that's it. Girls got bad hair day. Guys are getting sweat down their backs and
their balls.
Balls.
I remember when I was in Miami, I used to leave out the front door just to walk from the front door to my car, bro. I swear to God, just from walking to my front door to the car, I was already fucking pissed. Like just the heat.
Yeah.
Excuse me, the humidity.
Yep.
Of being outside used to put me in a bad mood.
Yeah. Welcome to the swamp.
And I used to, we feel that here too, but
no. But over there, bro, for some reason we're supposed to have that ocean breeze, and you do when you're in the coast. Pero bro, I don't know, like Kendall gets fucking hot as balls, bro.
Yeah.
Even Coconut Grove is right there. It's un sudor.
There's always those days, those select days,
right?
That you're outside in Miami, and you're like, oh man, I want to bottle this moment.
You're right.
Like this feels so amazing, and you're already dreading when you wake up tomorrow, because tomorrow it's gonna fucking suck. That's it. Like that's it. That moment has come. You're living in that moment, and that moment's gone. And maybe that's what makes Miami such a magical place for some people. They live in that moment, that romanticized moment of that breeze, of that shit, of that
take
party.
A selfie.
Yeah, that party, that your friend that offers you some drugs. You're like, fuck it, bro.
Fuck
like,
it
feels so fucking good out, But, in the back of your mind, you're like, yeah, but, tomorrow's going to suck. It's going to feel like shit. It's just, you're going to wake up hungover as fuck. I mean, we know that.
Sure.
But yeah, man. So, well, I'm going to take our sponsor break here right now. And when we come back, we're going to keep talking about Cuba a little bit. And we're going to also talk about a little bit about growing up in Miami as Cuban, and going into some of the dynamic of that type of stuff. So we shall be right back. Enable Properties is a boutique-style real estate and property management company located right here in Gainesville, Florida. With over 2 decades of experience in both the Miami and now Gainesville markets, Enable Properties and owner Amy Cepeda have seen it all. There is nothing Amy and her team can't help you manage, buy, and or sell immediately. Enable Properties has earned a multitude of awards, including those for excellence in customer service and overall customer satisfaction. Amy has a deep passion for the Florida housing market, and that passion will get you to where you need to be. Whether it's investing in new property to expand your portfolio, or whether it's selling your current house and to cash in on that sweet, sweet equity, or maybe it's taking that equity to buy your dream home, Amy and Enable Properties have you covered. Maximize your time and maximize your profits today with Enable Properties. Amy and her team are waiting for your call today at 352-225-1163, or check out their website, at enablepropertiesgnv.com. That's Amy and team at 352-225-1163 or on the web at enablepropertiesgnv.com. Enable Properties, your Gainesville real estate experts. We are back, folks. We are back talking about Cuba and everything that's going on with the country. We're now going to pivot a little bit and talk about in relations to Cuba, but more from the American perspective, right? What it was like for us to live in this country, as you know, as immigrants of sorts. Even if we were born in this country, we feel like immigrants when our parents are not even from this country. And just kind of the consequences, because it relates, right? When our countries are screwed up, when our countries are just a major piece of shit, you know, we have to vacate, like what Cubans do, right? It is what it is, and Cuba is not special in that sense. There's a lot of countries in this world that are screwed up.
Yep.
So, but to come to a country like the United States, you have to assimilate to the culture, you have to assimilate to the people, you have to just, you know, it's a new place, right? So in reality, you know, I grew up in Miami, right? I moved out there when I was 5 years old. I created even a post on Instagram about it. If those of you that haven't seen it, go ahead and check out our Instagram page and take a look at the post. But I make a mention about, you know, being born in '83 and then leaving the country when I was just a few months old, luckily. And then I moved to Venezuela. I lived in Venezuela until I was about like five and a half or so, and then I moved to the United States. And so that's why I've always said I'm basically American. But you and I both spoke about this, right, Abel?
Right.
The fact that we're kind of like a hybrid. We're not American enough. We're not Cuban enough. We're not anything enough to go ahead and assimilate to anything. And it's really frustrating. And I think that's also a byproduct of what happens in our countries.
Right.
Can you talk a little bit about your experiences in general about that?
Yeah. I mean, so I was born here.
Right.
But you know, you can tell by my accent, I come from Miami, where we all speak Spanish. You are forced to speak Spanish at the house because you live with your uncles and you live with your grandparents. And if you don't speak it, well, then you can't speak with them and can't even get a glass of water.
Yeah.
Was it difficult? Yeah, I remember it very difficult, even in New Jersey. I remember certain instances where back then I used to be full of Dutch. In New Jersey, it was like a Dutch place, and I remember them telling my parents to be quiet, and then fights that they used to have, and well, to the point that when we decided to come back down here, it was a little different because there was already a big Cuban community down here, and I think that's where my love for the Cuban people, the Cuban culture, came about because. You know, coming from up north where you would think that, oh, there's no racism because we're Yankees and all that. The racism is there. It's just like an underlined racism.
Yeah.
But when we got here, the only ones that opened up their houses to us and received us with open arms were the Cubans, man. You know how, even though I was, like I tell you, I was born in New Jersey and all of that, you know, you come with that, like the mentality, like you just got here, you know. So I was very, very skinny with a big ass head, you know. You know, the Cubans were like, "Oye, pero qué le pasa a ese niño?"
I don't know if the big head part has changed very much.
Oye, algo le pasa a ese niño, está pasando hambre. So then the Cubans, you know, they gave me what was it that I told you? They gave me malta con leche condensada.
What we called a Cuban float, by the way, at the Cuban dude's food truck.
Bro, in less than 6 months, bro, I was like, bro, I was like a sumo wrestler, bro.
When we had the food truck, people would order empanadas, croquetas, a Cuban float, this and that. And I used to look at them and be like, yo, holy shit. If you only knew that just drinking this thing alone was like a meal in itself.
It's a meal. I fucking think it was a meal, dude.
Yeah.
Because I had the problem that I wouldn't eat a lot.
Yeah.
You know, so that's what they would just stick that shit down. Pa, no, y arriba eso mete una croquetica. Que ese niño necesita comer.
You know, I used to like, not to deviate too much from the topic, but I used to like that mixture, but with Coke. Did you ever used to have it with Pepsi?
No.
Pepsi with leche condensada, bro. It tastes like a float.
No shit.
Literally. It tastes like a fucking float, and there's no ice cream in it.
Well, that's good.
So when you're batiéndolo, you know, the little foam would start to come up and shit.
Nice.
Yeah, but that was my jam because I liked a little bit like the like the gassy part of it, like as you're drinking it.
Right.
You gotta, one day when you're fucking feeling brave and you don't give a shit about your diet, do it with leche condensada and like Pepsi. You know what I mean? Like Pepsi that still has like a lot of gas.
Right.
And you're gonna see what I'm talking about. It's fire.
Nice. So I've been going back to my story.
Yes.
So then,
sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. Take the mic, Andy. So I learned that. I learned, but growing up, I was able to go to like I think we've talked about this. I was able to go to. Look at me, I got kicked out.
Yeah, I think we can still hear you.
All right, so
there you are. You're back.
Oh, look at that. So I was able to go to Catholic school, a Cuban Catholic school, where they taught me history of Cuba. All my friends were Cuban. My teachers were Cuban. And nothing, man. I just got really immersed in the culture, en mitad de la calidad, all the things that we used to go, St. Peter and Paul, Belém, people from Belém, people from St. Brenda's, all those people, Lourdes Academy. So I got really, really into the culture, man. I mean, I was just like, hey, dude, I'm Cuban. I'm Cuban.
Right.
And when you're in those circles, obviously you don't see that so much is until you leave Miami. Like what I told you when you get here, that you're like, oh, hold on a second. This is the culture shock right now.
Yeah.
Because, we still have people that live there 30 years that they don't speak a lick of English.
Yeah. Like my parents.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they don't speak a word of fucking English.
Yeah, and and that's why my grandmother never wanted to leave Hialeah and shit. People were going to get lost.
Yeah. I've told my parents before. I'm like, do you have any idea how much like more you guys would know? How much more jokes? How much more cultural things in this country you guys would just understand if you guys tried a little bit to learn the language?
Yeah, and when I got here, growing up, you assimilate to the culture. So I had to learn who Pink Floyd was and who Led Zeppelin was, and do the roller skating thing and learn your English, and you just assimilate to the culture to the point where there's a big generation of us. There's a big community of us that we both speak Spanish and English, that we do like rock and roll, and we did rock in the concerts, and we did smoke the weed, and we did hang out. But then we would come home, and on the weekends we were playing dominoes and listening to salsa and doing our own thing. I just, what I don't see that with the new people that are coming in. And the love of the country, dude. I grew up where at 6 a.m. they had the Star Spangled Banner thing on TV, and midday, and before you went to go sleep, it was almost like, hey, love your country, don't let it fall, don't let it burn. On top of that, the love for the country that I was instilled came from my father, which was a Vietnam veteran. So he loved this country. If it wasn't for him, all of my family would not be here, because they gave him residency. And then he became a citizen. And then with that, then he called, the rest of the family.
Big ups to Pops.
Yeah, bro. That's why, man. I mean, the love, I grew up in an era where it was like a good commie is a dead commie.
Yeah.
And praise the Lord and pass the ammunition kind of shit.
I smell.
Oh,
I smell commies.
I smell commies. Watch out, communist.
Ronald Reagan.
Ronnie.
Yeah, fuck commies. So esto. Yeah, no, that's.
And then I got more crazy stories too, but I mean, I would like you to share yours.
No, bro. Hey, no. This show is all about you.
No, Baba Izzy.
No, bro. I love it when you go off on a tangent and you start talking about these fucking things, because it's obviously no secret. We're kind of different generationally, right? And you have a lot more of those interesting old school, like Miami stories and things like that, which some of these younger people, like they, of course, instinctually they don't relate. They don't fucking get it. But I do know that when they get older, they get maybe closer to my age, whatever, they're gonna like Jones for that kind of shit.
By the way,
they're gonna look and research like 1970s, 1980s, 1990s Miami, and they're gonna be like, "Fuck, I want to know more about that type of stuff."
So may I say, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to say that tomorrow is my boy Andy's birthday. Happy birthday!
Give me a round of applause. That's not really. No. Oh, I was gonna ask for the fart. Really?
Oh, well, I'll give you fart.
Yeah. There.
Anda, no more leche condensada for you.
Yeah, it is what it is. Fucking 41,
bro. Let's go out somewhere, dude.
I honestly I remember when I turned like 21,
Okay.
and I was like able to like legally drink and this and the other, blah, and now I'm 41, bro. Like I can't believe it. I can't
Hey,
believe it.
dude, well, you made it. Congrats.
That's true, man. I didn't know.
How many
Some
homies do you
people,
know that are not here now?
yeah, quite a few. Some in my family, some growing up in school, and also some even in Diana's family that died in their mid early 20s. You know
Sweet
what I mean? And
Jesus.
we were still teenagers at the time, and it was like shit. And it's just weird how like you get to a point where you see people in their 30s and shit, and you think they're like ancient, even
Right.
in your late teens.
Yeah.
And then when you get to that age, you're like, damn, bro, like I still don't know anything about the world, and this dude died like 15 years ago, like in like subtracting my age 15
Right.
years. I'm like, that's unbelievable.
Yeah. But I'll be honest with you. I'm 53, and when you get to your 50s is when you actually wrap your head around the whole thing, and you're more comfortable with yourself and with your thoughts and all of that. The only thing is that your fucking body's falling apart if you don't take care of it.
I feel like my body's falling apart already, and I'm fucking gonna turn 41 tomorrow.
Take care of it. You got
I don't know
another
what
10 years to get
I
to
don't
where I'm
know
at.
what the fuck. So getting back on topic
Yeah,
here,
yeah, yeah. Any good anybody wrote anything nice?
yeah,
that we can
have
chit-chat?
had Peter mention manta con leche condensada is fire.
Que llamen.
The main reason es que los apagones are too often. Yeah, I spoke that about David. David said, "Make America great again."
Yep.
All that kind of stuff. So,
Yep.
we got some people chiming in. When I think about Cuba, and I think about Miami, of course. So, primarily, I think about my parents. When I got to the United States of America, I got here just knowing Spanish, which when I think back on it sometimes, especially because I think in English, I do everything in English now.
Right.
It kind of blows my mind because I'm like, holy shit, I can't believe I was ever at a point where all I knew was Spanish. English has just become a fabric of my life.
Exactly.
So, but it's true. I learned English in like 2 weeks to impress a next door neighbor of my grandma, some girl that lived next door to my grandma.
She must have been hot.
She was a little gringuita. She only
Of course.
spoke,
So she was blonde. You're like,
yeah,
what that blonde?
she only spoke English, and I was like, I gotta learn English. So like, I was in summer school before ESOL and shit, and I was like
They
concentrated.
made you do ESOL too. They made me do ESOL.
Yeah,
What is that called? I think it's like a Spanish for
English as a second
English
language,
as a second language.
something like that. And I did that summer school before going to kindergarten, and when I got to kindergarten, I went to regular kindergarten.
Yeah, I did that shit in Rockaway Elementary.
Yeah, I went to Kendall Lakes Elementary. Then I went to Bowman Foster Ash, and then one other. And then I'm not going to run through all the schools, but out in Kendall. Remember, I was in Kendall. You were in Hialeah, right?
No, I was actually I'm Westchester.
Oh, you were Westchester, yeah. So, but from my parents, like I said, from my parents' perspective, man, it just must have been tough, man, tough. Like the notion of me picking up my family right now and moving to a foreign fucking country, not because I want to, not because it's cute and sexy, not because of work, not because of anything, just because you have to. Like you have to leave. And to say, for example, right now I want to move to Switzerland, which in theory, even though it's cold as fuck, but in theory it sounds like a dream, right? Everything Swiss looks so nice and pristine. But to get to Switzerland, I have to go through like fucking Afghanistan or something.
Jeez.
You know what I mean? I was like, my parents had to leave Cuba to go to Venezuela, of course, not Afghanistan, but they had a hard time. They had a hard time.
No, it is.
You know what I mean, my mom was cleaning fucking floors. My dad was comiendo mierda from everybody. We lived as poor as we could live, pretty much within the means that we had.
And that wasn't your guys' fault, because I mean I have a lot of Venezuelan friends, and I'm sorry to say, guys, at those times, Venezuelans were very arrogant.
They were
extremely arrogant. They hated Cubans. They hate anything that wasn't Venezuelan.
Yeah.
They hated Colombians. They treated Colombians like shit.
And they thought they were fancy as fuck because, and I think it had to do with the types of people that were also living in Venezuela at the time.
Well, but it was big. Caracas was a thing. It was like
Venezuela was full of like Italians,
yeah,
French,
and
and
so the Paris
people
of
from
the
Spain.
South. Yeah.
Yeah, most of the people that we ever knew that had some kind of European influence, if you will. My first girlfriend, quote unquote, was a French blondie.
Hey,
I have pictures with her and everything.
What's up with you and the blonde girl?
Yeah. Yeah, like anybody that we ever met, in our circles that ever had any kind of European influence, of backing,
right,
that their grandparents were from like legitimately from Spain and they knew them, and
right,
so we met in Venezuela. You know what I mean? So like, I think it was because the country felt cultured in that way.
Right.
They used to treat anybody who came from like Cuba, probably even from like Central American countries, like let's say somebody arrives to Venezuela and they're from Nicaragua or Honduras, probably like shit.
Yeah.
And my parents, they lived that reality. And to me, once again, just circling back on today's topic, the country's being a huge steaming pile of crap just puts it in this perspective of like, damn, dude, like we could have just lived in Cuba. What if the innovation and the stuff that Cubans in Miami have put into Miami, right? Because a lot of people look at Miami today,
right?
They see those high rises in Brickell and downtown, and
right,
and a lot of people think to themselves, whether it's true or not, right?
Right.
Cuba had something to do with this shit. Cubans had something to do with this.
Yeah, I was gonna say not Cuba, but Cubans.
Cubans. Well, I say Cuba in general because we exiled from the country and we arrived there, right?
Right.
So Cubans had something to do with this shit.
Right.
And imagine if that level of kind of drive.
Right.
I was going to use ingenuity, but we're not like well, we do have ingenuity.
Well, have you seen those rafts? That's some ingenuity.
That is some ingenuity. Hey, by the way, we are receiving a phone call.
Oh no, let's hear it
for the first time here. Let's let me go ahead and answer here.
Yeah.
Let's put him on. Cuban dudes.
What's up, guys?
Hey, give a round of applause to our first phone call ever. Hello. Hello.
Oh, I'm the number one customer, huh?
The number one customer. What's going on, brother? How can we help you? You're calling in about Cuba?
Yeah, just basically listening to you guys, and believe it or not, I wasn't born in Cuba either, but my parents, obviously, my whole family is Cuban, and for some reason, I always have a strong, I'm very passionate about the Cuban topic for some reason.
Yeah.
And, it sucks to see, obviously what they're going through. But I think partly, and this is, don't hate me because I get some hate on this, but a lot of it has to do with the Cuban, with the Cubans that are here in the exile that are just maintaining Cuba. Because, when it comes to sending money to Cuba, traveling to Cuba, vacationing in Cuba, you're supporting that communist regime.
100%.
Right, and that is the argument. And what's your name again, my brother? I'm sorry.
Oh, David.
David, yeah, and that seems to be the argument. So they're in Miami, they're split. So they're like, some think like you, and some think like, well, why did they have to really suffer? Because it ends up being food for them, y los recargo for the phones and all of that. So yeah, Miami in a sense is split on that.
And this is the argument that I make to those people that say that. When people in the Middle East flee and, they leave their country because they're fucking getting, locked up and chopped up and they're getting tortured and they flee, do those people go back to their country? Do they send money? Do they work here and send money? You know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
They just like cut ties and they're like, fuck it. It is what it is. This shit happened to us.
Right.
And, you have people that leave Cuba and then within a year, dude, are going back to Cuba to vacation.
Right. Right. No, and that was the whole issue with Rubio. He was like, listen, if we're giving them, this thing of exiles and we're giving them the monies and we're giving them the phones, because of persecution, how is it that once you get all of that and you get your green card or your residency and then you go back 3 times a year? Like, so is there a persecution? Are you being chased, or is it just, playing the system?
Exactly. And then, and then how do you expect that regime not to fall? It's not going to fall. You're supporting that. That to travel to Cuba, if you're Cuban, you need to have a Cuban passport, right?
Yeah.
And that passport is only valid in Cuba.
Yeah, and I also think that just part of the problem is also just the dependency that the system itself has created for the people. I mean, to get to this country and have to find yourself now to actually have to, and that's that they get a lot of help, because let's not deny it, Cubans get a lot of help, but to get to this country and have to now fend for yourself, like you actually have to work, you have to provide, you have to live your life. Where you come from Cuba, you just lay back. Yeah, okay, maybe, okay, fine. It sucks to only get a gallon of milk once every so often, but holy shit, you didn't have to go out and work for that. You know what I mean? So I think that they Jones for that.
and on top of that, to add to what you're saying, they come to this country, and mind you, my whole family is Cuban. They come to this country, and they get all the benefits in the world that no other refugees get.
Yeah.
I know I'm in the construction business, and I know a lot of people from Honduras, from El Salvador, from all these Central America countries, especially Central America, where all these hardworking people,
mm-hmm.
and dude, and they're here 20 years and they don't even have a driver's license because they can't be legalized.
Yeah, and then to your point, and then here are Cubans going back to Cuba like not even 6 months after arriving here or something. It's like they're desperate to go.
That's why the Haitians are pissed and everybody else is pissed and the Nicaraguans are pissed.
Yeah. Whenever a Haitian comes up to me and just goes, oh, talk something about Cuba, I swear it's like I kind of stay stonewalled because I don't really know what to say sometimes.
Bro, get ready. There's a mass exodus coming.
Oh, yeah.
You see that they're
where are they heading to?
To Miami.
David, are you in Miami?
Yeah, and as a matter of fact, yesterday I saw a TikTok, and it was a lady. I do a lot of work down in the Keys, and there's a lady that lives in a private island down in Marathon where there's only there's several homes, and her neighbor had to pull a gun out on a boat of migrants from Haitians that washed up on their island, and it's getting crazy. It's getting serious.
Coño, qué racista esa mujer, brother.
It is what it is. Hey, David, man, I appreciate you, bro. I appreciate you calling in. We're gonna wrap up here the show, man. I appreciate you, brother.
Thank you, David.
All right, guys.
All right.
Have a good night.
You too, bro.
That's David. That's our first call. Let's give another round of applause to our first caller, guys. 352-234-4888 to talk to us on the show. We'll go ahead and talk about anything you want to talk about. Really, just go ahead and give us a call, and we'll jump on that subject, even if it's not directly relational to whatever we're having a conversation about. It don't matter to me.
Yeah.
One other thing I want to say, Abel, before we wrap up the show is what our countries and the mentality, like David was mentioning, right, of the Cuban people has done, I think, to Cubans nowadays. I think you and I both are in agreement that Cubans from the past, Cubans that arrived to the United States in the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, maybe even in the 80s,
the old guard,
quote unquote, are not the same kind of Cubans that was coming today.
Not at all, sir.
And in quality, and also just in work ethic, primarily.
Work ethic, the way they view world.
The way they view the world.
And
I think that there's something to be said about our countries whenever there's problems like this. And by the way, I say my country in general because I was born there, because my culture's from there, because my parents are from there, and everything I've ever known is Cuban. I was raised very Cuban. Like I said, my parents don't even speak a word of English.
Right.
But my country, of course, is the United States of America. Oh, I've been here since I was 5 years old.
Right. Yeah, this is our country.
At the end of the day, this is our country. Right. Point blank.
That's it.
But being Cuban is like, it's weird, man. It's like an enigma. It's like something out of a Twilight Zone episode. You watch the Cuban national team play in the World Series of Baseball, and you're actively rooting against them. You watch a Cuban athlete, a Cuban artist, a Cuban anything,
and you're hoping they defect, all of them.
Run,
motherfucker, run!
Yeah. And if they still have a home over there, and when they're done with that tour, they're heading right back to Cuba. You're like, ay, pa la pinga con el comunista este. Everything is negativity.
Yeah.
Everything is, and you know what? It's something that, like, as Americans, I think we take for granted because for those of us that care, like a sport, for example.
Right.
If the United States are playing, a lot of people here only care if the United States are in it. If they're not in it,
they're not watching.
They're not watching it.
They're not watching.
So there's that. And then there's also just the part of being prideful about your own country. I mean, during the World Cup in 2010, I remember being down in Miami, and I've always been a fan of the Spanish team.
Okay.
Just because by default, you think about your roots and your stuff and whatever, and Cuba doesn't play soccer, so I go for the Spanish team, right? They happened to win the World Cup that year. And oh my God. And I was a fan since forever. But I remember that moment, like I can relive it today. I literally got like emotional and everything. And I've never even stepped foot in Spain. Right. And the people at the restaurant were all Spanish, and they were like chanting and like crying and like hugging on each other.
They love
whatever.
their sport.
Yeah. I can't see Cuban people doing the same thing, man. It's like Cuban people, they don't feel that, like they feel a longing for their country,
right?
But they can't support it. And honestly,
So are we talking about the exile community, or are we talking about those that just got here?
Talk about the exile. We're still talking about Miami, so we're talking
Right.
about the exile community
Okay,
that
okay,
is
okay.
because yeah, within Cuba, of course, they probably got nothing better to do. They're going to go for the Cuban people, whatever, right?
Sure.
I'm talking about the exile community in
Okay.
Miami.
All right.
Um, they can't, they just can't accept a triumph of their country, and that honestly, to me, I remember telling that to my father a few months ago when they came to visit me up here in Gainesville. I was like, Dad, isn't it weird to you that like we are from a country that we can't love anything that anybody from our country makes? Like, isn't that like fucking strange?
Until they get to Miami, but because I've seen a lot of support with like rappers when they get to Miami. I have artists when they get to Miami. If they're there at the moment that that same artist that they've been throwing flowers at happens to go and do a concert back in Cuba, then you get fucking X Factor, bro.
Yeah. Yeah, no, yeah, for sure. But I just, I just kind of, I'm just saying this in general. It's one of those things that just makes it a an odd thing to be Cuban.
It is.
And then even within families, like Cuban families, I bet you Cuban families in Cuba are very tight knit. Shit, they got nothing better to do but to be with
Yeah,
their family.
I'm guessing.
I know a lot of. I mean, it's not. This doesn't speak to everyone, but there's a lot of Cuban families down in South Florida, anywhere throughout the United States that are very tight knit. I'm not saying everyone, but I have met a greater majority of
Okay.
families that tend to become disparate. It's like they kind of build their own bubbles, and like this family is like it's like a sub family of the family of the sub family of the other family. And I think in a way, you tend to see a lot of gringos being kind of very close to their family. You tend to see a lot of people, Colombians, people from Mexicans. Everybody's very family.
Mhm.
I've been noticing a trend a lot with Cubans where like family is almost like the second thing that they'll do today, possibly if they have a chance to
Right.
get to it. I'm talking about Cubans.
Right. No, I get it.
And I think that's also a product of just the system in general, just the decay of the country and what it's created in people.
Right.
You
Right.
understand what
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
saying?
yeah. I know exactly what you're saying.
So
Yeah, which is rather odd. Why would they be against each other almost like wouldn't you want to be all together and celebrate shit together and
yeah,
I don't get it. I come from a small family, dude. It's just my wife, myself. She doesn't have any brothers. I have a half brother that I didn't grow up with. He's actually from Spain. He was born in Barcelona. I got a stepmom in Sevilla. My father, who had been living there for 20 years, he died there. They're always telling me to go visit and stuff. I still haven't been able to go because we have roots there. And we, so I had a very small family, and those are the things that I've always longed for. I was like, when it would be cool to throw a big party and everybody can come over and we can share and talk shit and eat a puerco, lechon, and jugar dominó y comer mierda. And then you give me this, and then I'm like, well, then fuck, then I'm not that weird.
no, because what ends up happening is your family, when they first arrive off the fucking boat for like, let's say the first 10, 15 years, because they need you, right? Right? They are all lovey dovey. They're all like mi familia,
Yeah.
mi gente,
You hook me up with that Nike hat.
whatever. Yeah, can you hook me up with a cute Nike hat like Abel has? Stuff
I
like
got
that.
this from my primo when I got here.
So all of that, but then eventually, right? And like I said, and I just think Miami probably has something to do with it. The busy life of Miami has something to do with it.
Sure.
But I just think that just once again, the lack of identity of the people within their own culture, within their own people, I think does psychologically do something. You know what I mean? Just sometimes almost being Cuban. It's almost like you have pride in being Cuban. And I think nowadays, talking about the internet, I think internet has re-emphasized the pride in your country because people are like, oh, being Cuban means this, being this means that,
Right.
and you're like, oh wow, yeah, I'm Cuban too, cool, But back in the day, I remember when I was in school, man, I remember that like I used to lie to kids in elementary school saying that I wasn't Cuban. I used to tell them that I was from New York. I used to tell them that I was fucking, primarily from New York was the big one. New York was the cool one to be from back in the days, whatever. But I used to say I was American. I did not want to say because kids used to call me a fucking bacero, a fucking rafter,
refs. But
a
you
ref,
say, hey, you fucking
ref,
ref,
you fucking ref,
you fucking
whatever. And so, but I guess getting back to my ultimate point, man, not to deviate too much from the topic, is there's a lot of things that there's a lot of trickle down effect from one's country being in screwed up in a shape,
and
like
that's part of their system. That's what it does. So it's all a psychological mind fuck.
Yeah.
From the moment you wake up to the moment you go to sleep, all day, every day through the fucking decades. That's what's been happening in Cuba.
By design.
By design.
Yeah, divide and conquer the people.
Divide and conquer.
Yeah, get them to
snitch on each other.
Snitch on each other. Right.
All
not
of that
not have
shit.
pride
Not have
in your
pride.
own kind of identity. You kind of just fend for
Why
yourself.
do you have that extra shirt? I've never seen that shirt. Where did you get that shirt? Let me that shirt. Steal the shirt.
Yeah.
That kind of shit.
A lot of the type of shit I feel like is going on in this country nowadays. Getting back to what's going on.
It's trickling. It's slowly. Remember, it's
a trick. Yeah, like I said, it's a trickle down effect.
It's a little thing. It's kind of like that analogy of the frog in the water. If you heat it up really quick, it'll jump. But if you put it in, you start heating up the water little by little, it won't jump because it won't notice the difference.
Yeah.
And by the time it's noticed the difference, it's already cooked.
Yeah. Before we wrap up, one other thing I want to say, kind of because we're talking about fucked up shit. Have you seen those videos lately about COVID? And highlighting what happened during COVID, and it kind of like one of those like never forget kind of campaigns.
No,
I saw one today, dude. I was like, Jesus Christ! Like I wanted to share it on the Cuban dudes page, but I was like, I don't want people to think we're too political.
By the way, where is this fucking Fauci guy now? I haven't seen that motherfucker since.
Yeah, dude.
What's up with that?
Yeah, the end of the world was coming. The end of the world, and now the guy's out of sight, out of mind, just gone.
Well, that's another thing. So they didn't let us fly. They didn't let us see our parents when they were dying. They didn't let us do a bunch of shit.
You had to get an operation. You were alone.
You were alone. All this fucking the mask and all the bullshit, and then they're letting in fucking hundreds of thousands of motherfuckers through the border without a shot, without a mask, without a thing, with things that we have already eradicated, like tuberculosis and this and that. I don't understand that, dude.
Don't get too political, Abel. You're too Hollywood for me to get.
No. It just freaking me out, dude. So I mean, listen, I think that they're just they're there to replace the workforce, the laborers. Yeah. All these people that are asking for, I want $15 an hour to work at McDonald's. Yeah. These fucking guys are gonna do it for $7, and they're gonna be happy as shit.
Yeah,
that's what's gonna happen.
I also think we might get one of these. I've thought about this before. One of these like boy who cried wolf kind of scenarios. Where like now the next thing that maybe comes up, because there's gonna be at some point some other fucking bullshit in our lifetime before we die. There's gonna be some other fucking lie or some other bullshit. And what I know is the boy who cried wolf. There's gonna be like some like shit that literally turns you to a fucking zombie or something. And people are gonna be like, fuck that shit. They're just lying to us. They're just exaggerating. This is COVID 2.0.
And then they hit us over the head with it.
Hits us over the head, and we're like walking down Archer. Because that's the only road I know out here.
With a taco.
With a taco from Linda Vista. So, yeah, man, yeah. But anyways, man, we're laughing about a lot of these things, but it's sad, and like we said, I think in the beginning, we have to laugh because if not, what do we do?
Yeah, no, Cubans have a way of laughing at their own misery, and that's the way you get through each day, brother.
Yeah, yep. Things. Abel, you got anything to announce? Anything you want to say before we wrap up? I know we're getting closer to the date of collateral interest.
Yeah, buddy, we're super excited.
April 6th, right?
April 16th.
April 16th.
Yeah, no, just super excited. This weekend, obviously, since I've been going out so much, I have to stay and work and work some more. Yep. Hopefully, I got a buddy of mine that his birthday's tomorrow. Hopefully, we get to go out for dinner somewhere.
Oh, yeah.
That'll be nice.
I bet he's a sexy motherfucker. I heard people that are born on March 22nd are pretty sexy. Yeah. We'll see.
Good one, Andy. Good one.
Yeah. Tomorrow's my birthday. So we'll see how that goes. Just to me, I honestly, in my job, I literally was actually, my job is pretty cool. My job gives me your birthday off.
Really?
Pretty cool.
Also, we're starting to drink tonight, baby.
So in my job, I was emailing some dude, and I was just like, yeah, you could set up. I have availability on Friday, this, and that, and the other. And then I retraced my emails, and I was like, holy shit, man! I was telling this guy to book stuff on my day off. It's my birthday. Like I completely just forgot. Once I think you pass 21, or maybe once you pass maybe your mid 30s, what are you about to do?
No, I was about to put. You forgot all that shit. I was gonna go.
Glass. Se come mierda. Yeah, you have to stay quiet to appreciate that one.
Yeah.
You kind of just don't care about your birthdays anymore. You're just like, whatever. My wife was kind of hinting.
Right.
He was like, oh, I was thinking about doing something. I was like, don't do shit. Just leave me alone. Just let me do my thing. Give me peace. Just whatever, And
tequila shots.
Yeah, I'm only 41 now tomorrow, and I feel like a bitter old man already, dude. What's gonna happen when I'm in
my age?
Yeah,
I don't know, buddy. You're not gonna look as sexy as me.
That's You're far beyond driven.
Ew.
Anyways, all right, I'm all good.
Dale,
We
viejo.
spoke about Cuba. We touched on the topic, and like I said in the beginning of the show, if we didn't talk about Cuba, if we didn't address the point of Cuba on a show like the Cuban Dudes Show and took advantage of what's going on in the country right now, it wouldn't make any sense.
Yeah, and I would like to add, guys, stay tuned. We have a lot of great guests lined up. I mean, this is phenomenal. People are calling us. We got I think a Miami Dolphin guy that wants to come and talk. We got a country singer that wants to come on the show. We have actresses that are that work for what is it? Get on Your Feet and Dance to Gloria Estefan. I mean, we got guests, guys. So stay tuned. This is gonna get better.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun. Definitely, I can't wait. It's like I was telling Abel about a few days ago. I was like, I don't know how I'm gonna get through the show. I'm mentally already in next week because next week we got a great guest, and I almost even contemplated just not doing this episode. I was like, let's skip it. I was like, skip it. I can't mentally get into this until next week. So I appreciate you guys' support. If you guys are still watching, if you've subscribed to our YouTube, definitely go ahead and do so. If you follow us on Instagram or Facebook, please go ahead and do so at Cuban Dudes and share. I mean, share with people, share with those that think that they'll enjoy our content. And we appreciate you guys. So I got nothing else. Abel, you got anything else?
That's it, papito. Cuba Libre.
Cuba Libre, Cuba Libre. You think people will head back to Cuba if Cuba becomes libre? People that have been living here like us.
So not right away. I think the first ones that will go in there would be politicians to roll back the Constitution back to like 1946 or 1942, which was the one that they helped write, roll everything back. And then a shitload of
then McDonald's is gonna go.
No, you
Burger
can bet your
King
ass.
is gonna go. KFC is gonna go.
Everybody that's owned.
Everybody.
Everybody's gonna go.
Taco Bell.
The best business that you're gonna be able to put in, and you can probably buy some shares out of, is any hardware store. You're gonna be a millionaire.
Oh, that's a good one.
Oh, they're gonna sell screws, this, that, electrical, lights, all of that for the next 10 years at least. Because Havana would probably be the first one that they.
That's a good one.
Yeah, man. Once the Hilton and everybody gets there, forget it. All that money's gonna get dumped. Like,
yeah,
huge.
That's finally, I think, when I'll visit the country. I mean, like I mentioned in my post on Instagram, I was born there and I've never been there. I get all these gringos when we had the Cuban Dude food trucks going like, oh my God, have you been to your country? Have you been to Cuba? Oh my God, it's like the best. And I used to always look at them and go,
yeah, I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm not going, lady.
Yeah. I mean, like, I don't give a fuck. But of course, they're buying food from us. So I was just like, oh, yeah.
Right, here, have another sandwich.
Have another sandwich, have another croqueta, just on my face. So, anyways, guys, enough rambling. YouTube, you're there. So subscribe, please. I appreciate you guys, and we will see you guys next week. This has been El Cuban Dudes Show with Andy and Abel. Please make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/@Cuban Dudes, and follow us on Facebook and Instagram @Cuban Dudes. Thanks, and we'll see you next week.